And on a more personal note, this is the Cheep and Chitter, which is what I call my videos, so that they have a title, that are on a more personal level and not directly related to wildlife. Now, I've already done this in the wildlife video, but it's fun to do. I shaved all my hair off. So, there's that. It's kind of fuzzy. It's not quite as smooth as I want. It's an ongoing process. I just decided I took last weekend off from pretty much everything that wasn't just like hanging around playing video games. I did not even go out or anything. The weather was what it was. Rain. Excuse me. But anyway, I took a weekend off because there's a lot of things going on. So we'll start talking about. But one of the things was I just got tired. I kind of have a routine because it takes a bit of time and I don't like to rush it or anything. So I wind up getting done with work a little bit early on Friday. And so for the past 3 or 4 months, Friday afternoon was like my longer shower and shaving and cleaning up the edges and things like that. And I started, because I've been doing that since I was a teenager, cleaning up, trimming edges and things like that. Or, well, teenager was keeping clean-faced until I grew a beard when I was like 18 or 19. But anyway, various cartridges, cartridge razors, various things like that. And a couple of months ago, I started experimenting. So I was like, I've heard all about them and might as well with a straight razor. And I tried an actual straight razor like you'd see in the barbershop kind of thing. And then they have one called a double edge razor or a safety razor where it's the two-headed. It's on both sides. That's what I've been using for the last few months, and it's been amazing. It's been a learning curve. You cut yourself a lot more easily with that, but once things kind of get around to it. So anyway, shaving my head was the same thing, obviously. That I already have the razor. I'm learning how to do it, and it's just a matter of, I got to stop rubbing it because it's picking up on the mic. It's loud enough because so this is Sunday, so Friday, so that's 2 days. And I got to do it more than once a week now. But anyway, yeah, that's been a learning experience, how curved and shaped my head is, which I was unaware of entirely. I've never done this before, never shaved it down. I would like to get it purely smooth so that there's nothing there, but that's something I kind of have to work up to. As I learned when I started using the razor, you really have to, it's a whole process of getting the right lather with the brush and putting it on, and there's pre-shave oils to try to make it smoother on there, and a fresh blade, and the entire process. Going with the grain and then against the grain, going with the grain, and then until you get a bit more experienced, not only you knowing how to hold it in the right angles and everything, but also your skin kind of gets used to it. And then you can go against, but it's with the grain and then across the grain. When you go against, there's a lot more chance of razor burn. Anyway, which is what I've been doing on my head now. Going with and then across, and sometimes against, but only in certain spots where it's kind of eased up as to where I can get it. And I have cut myself every time so far that I've done it. But the first few times it was 2 nicks and a lot of blood. And then this most recent time when I got the pre-shave oil, because I hadn't been using that before, I hadn't needed it, it got to a point where I only cut myself once. Improvement. Hopefully it'll get to that point. But anyway, yes, that is what I'm working towards, and that's what I'm still deciding. I have not yet decided if I am going to commit to it fully, and it will be, this is permanent now, or if this is just going to be for the summer thing where I try it out and see if I can get my head to the point where it becomes smooth. Because like the other areas that I shave is not a big deal at all. Like I've been doing it long enough, not even just these last few months with the safety razor, with the double edge razor, whatever you want to call it, but on a longer time period of years and years and years, to the point where your skin gets used to it and it becomes easier. You can go against the grain and it doesn't pull or hurt because it's been softened and it's been shaved close enough. You can get purely smooth when you go against the grain that way. That's what I want. If I can get my head to that level of smoothness, I'm okay with that and I'll leave it and I'm good. Until that point, it gets a little smoother each time I do it. And especially that pre-shave oil kind of gives a protective layer between the skin and then the hair that you're actually cutting. And so it glides a little bit easier and it doesn't cause so much razor burn or anything. So the Alternative, if I can't get it that smooth, I'll just wind up leaving it basically buzzed, and I'll just buzz it down, because that's an easy thing. Even without a guard on there or anything, buzzing it all the way down takes very little time. Either way, I got tired of looking at my hair and seeing how thin it was on top and knowing that it's coming one day. And nobody else really, for the most part, could see it. Only the people who are around me permanently noticed that it was starting to thin out. And so if you're going to do it, might as well go out on top before anyone really notices and goes, oh, hey, look at that bald spot. But it was there, trust me. And I had a bit of fun. I'm sure I'll be including images here from when I was buzzing it all off and shaving it. So it's not fully gone or anything. There's some spotches there in the middle you can see once you get it all the way down. But we'll see. I have yet to decide. I kind of figured I'd take, if it's going to regrow, regrowing over the summer is going to be a lot easier than, you know, if I decide to keep it all the way through there and then go, oh, no, wait, let me get some hair back and some warmth on my head during the winter is going to be rough. So I did that. I made that decision. I got tired. It was more of just I've been thinking about it for months, and I've been looking at it, and it may not have actually thinned out anymore, but I just got tired of looking at it and deciding I might as well, I just got to do it, because I keep bringing myself going, well, I can just do it. It's not a big deal. It's just hair. I keep telling myself it's just hair. Some of it will grow back. Maybe not all of it, but it also doesn't matter because I'm going to wear hats anyway. I know this. I wear hats most of the time when I go out now because I'm doing this stuff, and I need to keep my head warm with this. I never used to do anything like that, or keep the sun off of my head. Point being, I shave my head. Moving on. We have, let's see. I took last weekend off, played some video games, getting further along towards my goals in some of those games that I've really enjoyed playing. Yesterday, I did a thing, and I'll put it, that will release later. That's not, if it's even a video. I just recorded myself, and I thought it would be interesting to see a time lapse. I got some computer parts, and I needed to clean them up and then install them into the computer. They're very old, but upgrades to the very old computer that I was using for various purposes. So I did that yesterday, and then I came out today to see wildlife. So I'm out doing that. I talked about a little bit in the other video that I know for sure we won't be here much longer. We have all but nailed down. We have gotten a copy of the lease and everything looks good. We just have to sign it, but when we sign it, we have to make the deposit at the same time, and that required pulling from our savings, which has a couple days to transfer. So, like, we got it on Friday, and we started the transfer as soon as we got it, being like, all right, well, this is the plan. This is what we're doing. So we both, splitting it, both pulled from our savings accounts and whatnot, and that's got to transfer over, and then we can sign the lease and make the deposit. And then we will be moving in the middle of July through the end of August, or through the beginning of August. We will be out totally of Wyoming by August 1st, is the plan. And there are pros and cons to everything, always. So that's kind of the title. I didn't look at a question, but that's what we're going to talk about today, is pros and cons. The pros of shaving my head are that I don't have to worry about styling my hair anymore. And a shower's a lot faster with the shampoo and conditioning. I use a lot less of it. I use more shaving time, twice a week at least. Maybe I need to up it 3 times. But the con would be it looks a little funky sometimes, and it's definitely something to get used to. The pros and cons of moving. Well, a pro is that we can remain together, my significant other and I, because the alternatives that we were talking about, trying to figure out what we were doing, was one person staying and one person going, and I think that would put a pretty big strain on the relationship. We've done long distance before, and it's not ideal, and it's not really what either of us want to do, and it would be expensive. The whole thing is going to be expensive no matter what. So, pro, we get to stay together. Another pro is that we can afford it barely at $2,200 a month. Is doable looking at the budget. Pro, she gets a raise because the school district that she's moving to knows how expensive Colorado is and gave everyone a little bit of a bump. It's not much, but every little bit helps. So there's that. That's nice. A pro, she gets to stay enrolled in college, because I may have talked about this, but her specific field that she's going for her master's in requires she's a music educator and has to teach band, specifically high school band. And that's why she did not keep the job where she was, shafted rudely, unnecessarily, and all the bad things about that previous job that she is now leaving, thankfully. It just wasn't going to work. She can't go teach the elementary school and have a band because they don't have band in elementary school. So she would not be able to complete the projects that are required. Like she had to do this last year, she won't be able to do that over the next year. So she has to teach high school band in order to get a degree in her master's degree, and taking time off of school would just delay it. And that's another thing that we'll talk about in a minute about what happens when she finishes school. So that's a pro. She gets to stay there. For her specifically, I'm not going to say I won't enjoy it as well, but she gets to move where she has a teaching friend again, because she's kind of been an outcast here in Wyoming. So personal level for her, that's a pro as well. It's a smaller apartment. That's not a pro. Hold on, we're trying to list all the pros here. Most of the utilities are included. That's nice. That's from everything that we did over the last 2-3 months of, almost 3 months of looking. I think it was beginning of March when we got the news, or was it February still? I don't remember. But anyway, over the last several months of looking, most of them were like, it includes nothing, and it's more than $2,000 a month for rent. This one, there's only one utility that isn't included, which was electric, which makes sense. It should stay nice. The pro and con at the same time of this is I've never lived in a place that does not have air conditioning, and I get hot fairly easily. So I know that is an expense, especially like growing up. That was always keep the air conditioning low, and it's like, oh, but it's 80 degrees in here. It's like, yeah, that's what we keep it at. And I don't do that as an adult. With my own conscience, I go, I make money, I pay the bills, I want to be comfortable, and we run it to stay comfortable. So that's what I know that is an expense that is not necessary, but I like it. This place does not have air conditioning. So I'm a little hesitant about that, but hopefully it doesn't get too bad. I looked it up, and this place, it's up. It's another couple thousand feet up in elevation. So it's definitely top of a mountain, which is, we'll talk about that in a minute. But anyway, so that should stay fairly low, the electric bill. Everything else is included. So that's nice. We are actually able to pin down kind of there on the budget. The pro is that the move will be a lot easier. Pros of just being in a new location, being on top of a mountain, being, it's not too far from a big lake, I think, and I should be able to go see wildlife, and I'll get a state park pass for Colorado as well. There's a lot of pros there as well. And it's a lot easier to just remain positive, looking at the hello bird, looking at the positives, trying to count out the pros. I might think of more, but some cons. It's furnished. It's a pretty big one. It is fully furnished. It is a small apartment. It's probably about half the size of what we live in right now, and fully furnished. So the reason the move is going to be easier is because before the move, we have to get rid of all the furniture. The washer, dryer, all of the couches that we bought, everything. To be fair, all of it's crap. It was the cheapest possible thing that we could get because we had a couple $1,000s saved up before we moved into our first apartment the first time, because living with parents and I was living in a place with multiple roommates and cheap rent, we were able to save up enough where we go, all right, let's buy ourselves furniture for our new place. And we've been using that furniture now for 6 or 7 years, and it's been falling apart the whole time. It started falling apart within the first year, and we called them up about the warranty and everything, and they went, okay, well, we'll have to, they sent us the part. It was a recliner, where the feet came out, and just one of the metal just sheared in half, one of the metal bars. And so they sent, we said with the warranty, and they went, okay, we'll cover that. And they sent the entire bottom, the entire part that sits in your couch and then extends out to there. All of the inner workings there just had to be replaced. They weren't replacing just the one metal part. So they sent that in a big box, and then they scheduled an appointment, and then they canceled the appointment and rescheduled it and canceled it. And we just went, forget it. It's not worth it. And so eventually, like a year later, I got around to it where I flipped it over and I looked at it and I understood everything, and I took out the parts that were getting replaced and I replaced the whole underside of it. So that part works. But then On the other, that was the love seat, I want to say. We bought a set. It was a couch, a love seat, and a recliner chair. And we rotate that depending on who's doing what or sitting where, putting different TVs in front of the various things. The recliner has always been a problem because the metal scrapes the wood comes out, it's crappy wood, it's like butter, it just comes right out, the screws don't. I've taken it apart more times than I can count, so it's really not a big loss, but it is a loss because it is still functional. I cannot recline in the recliner because if I pull the handle, and the thing, it just comes apart because it's broken. It's very broken. It's come out of the wood. So I just sit in the recliner and use a little ottoman to put my feet up. I fixed... Let's see, I replaced that on the love seat. The couch we haven't really had that many problems with, except that it came disconnected from the reclining part on one side, and I've never... It's to the point where for me to fix that, I have to take the upholstery off in order to get to the actual, to hook it back up. It's come apart somewhere inside the couch to the point where I would have to reupholster it after, like, cut it open, get to there, and then sew it back, and I don't have the tools for that. It's not an easy thing where I can just flip it over and use wrenches and sockets and things like that to remove parts and screws and add it back. Or, what I've done for some other... There's a little piece of wood, again, the recliner, I want to say, because I've typically used the recliner more than anything. It's just a lot. I like it. I like having my chair with that stuff, and it's easier to put things, my laptop on one side or whatever. But anyway, where your feet go, down on the very bottom of it, where you use it to kick in everything, there was a small piece of wood, and we're talking like that thin. And again, all of this material seems to be made out of balsa wood or paper. So that broke at one point, but I was able to fix that by taking a strip of metal. I went to Home Depot or whatever and got a small thin strip of metal and put that in there to reinforce it. So that was nice. But in order to really fix it, I would have to rip out the wood that was there and put it there. And it doesn't matter because we're moving and we cannot take it with us. There is no room. So the crappy furniture, not that big of a loss. The washer dryer, not that big of a loss. We bought the cheapest possible. I mean, that's when you're making not very much above minimum wage and you're trying to support yourself on your own, that's what you can afford, is to get the bottom of the barrel stuff. And it's lasted. We did have a trouble after a couple of years with the washer where it started leaking, and we had a big leak problem that we had to clean up. And it turned out that the inlet valve for the cold water eroded away. And I've looked it up, and it's not impossible to replace. I just never got around to it because I'm lazy and I don't really know what I'm doing in that regard. And it comes up to a whole thing, and it's an extra expense. And it works fine with just hot water. So we just have been washing all of our clothes in hot water for years. So those are going away. So that should make it easier. The big stuff like that, several bookcases are going to have to go. I'm going to try not to get rid of any desks because I wind up using those for everything. But most of them can fold flat. All of those really nice desks that I have for my computer area, I'm thinking we can still set that up. I don't know if I can set all of them up, but again, I know that comes apart. I built them. It's just a plank of wood, the nice red hardwood on top, and then the metal legs just screw in on the right place. So I know that comes apart, and that will. So of all that stuff, it'll probably be like the day before the move, or whenever we have to figure out exactly how the move is going to happen, because she comes back from college. She does the summer college like the week before we move, so it's like all hands on. And I don't know if we're going to make it multiple trips, because it's not impossible. We don't have to do like we did coming from Georgia to Wyoming, where we had to drive 1,500 miles. So it was a one way. It was a one trip, get everything done. That was a big stressful thing. It's not going to be that much. It's 4 or 5 hour drive. So still not something I really want to do all that much, but it's much easier to do if it's like, all right, we can get everything, all of the furniture and stuff. I got to find out if the thrift stores in the area will take them. Because usually anytime I've had to donate or buy any furniture or anything, it's been like Goodwill, but the Goodwill here is not big enough. I definitely know that they won't take furniture. So I know there are other thrift stores that I've been to and even bought an old vintage camera at. I don't remember if they had furniture, so I have to find out if they'll take furniture or appliances, because I would much rather donate that than... I don't even know how to trash. What are you? It's probably a prairie dog. Something small on the ground, four-legged, running around. Maybe a rabbit. It ducked back in the bushes. It came out on the road for a second and then went nope and ran away. It may have seen a predator bird. Anyway, come on. Bring back my light. Focus. There we go. So that is the pro and con. The moving will be easier. When we are done there, we will have to buy all new furniture. Not ideal, because we're not really going to be able to save probably any money over the next year, because everything will be more expensive. So it's a bit of a tricky situation there to go, all right, we're going to get rid of all this stuff, which one day we would have gotten rid of anyway, because it is lower quality and falling apart and not the best. And it would just be nice to have something that will last for furniture. So it's not like we bought it and expected it to last our entire lifetime. So we know that, but at the same time, it's expensive. And that is another thing, just moving in general, doing this entire thing. The job that she's gotten, theoretically on paper, is just for a year, because the person whose job it was is taking time off for a year. So it's a year contract. They could come back, but also we can't afford to stay there once she gets out of college, because here's the thing. I never went to college, but from what I've learned and doing that stuff, you take out the loans, because unless you are paid to go to college, which doesn't happen all that often, you take out your student loans so you can pay for all the college stuff. You got to start paying them back. You don't have to make payments on them until you're done with school. So when you go back to school for your master's, same thing. When you get done, you have to start paying that back. And we've already calculated out that that's going to be $750 a month, because at a higher, they're capped at how much they can charge for your out of your annual salary. But when you get a master's degree, you get bumped up on pay. You get a higher raise, which means they charge you more. So yeah, there's no way we'll be able to afford to live there on top of a $700 payment between the two of us. It's just not going to happen. Not at our current incomes, and I don't see mine changing dramatically in the next year. I see me maybe getting a small raise, a small percentage, single-digit percentage probably. I'm hoping it'll be more than it usually is, because 3% does not keep up with inflation as it's looking right now. But anyway, so we're going to go for a year. And then the plan after that is to figure out something else, and then to go somewhere else, because I just don't think we can afford to stay in Colorado for that long. It's just the cost of living is way, way higher than anything else we've ever dealt with. I mean, even back in Georgia, our rent for an apartment between the two sizes, it wasn't huge. It was more than 1,000 square feet, but it was still 1,200 or 1,300, which apparently has skyrocketed because especially the surrounding areas outside of Atlanta has gotten crazy. So let's see. I don't know if it's a pro or a con to live in a ski resort town. It doesn't seem to be. My sister did it for a bit, because they had a college there, and she worked at the college bookstore, and it's just really expensive, and you don't get nearly as much of the amenities as there. That's the pro and con of the utilities. Internet is included as a utility, which means it's included in the price, which sounds great, but we can't make any changes because it's set by an HOA for this condo, apartment complex, whatever. So we've been quoted that we'll get 200 megabytes download speed and 5 megabytes upload speed. And now for comparison, right now we pay for 1 gigabyte of download speed and 30 upload speed. And that is how it doesn't take me days to upload videos to YouTube when I record 4K videos and I go to upload them, because I get fairly decent upload speeds. And download speeds for gaming, and because we're both on the internet all the time and I work on the internet constantly, the gigabyte it's been well worth it. When we got that moving out to Wyoming, we were not quite, I think we were close. We had like 30, but again, we did not have 5 upload. 5 upload is going to be rough. There's a big con there. We're going to have to figure out I don't know what to do about that, there's nothing I can do. There's no changes I can make. The only thing I can figure is if I can find a better connection and drive somewhere and like take a hard drive with a laptop and then set it up and let it upload. It's rough. We'll see. I'm hoping it doesn't get to that point, because even just leaving it on overnight is what I do already, and the upload speed takes a while. But when you're uploading videos that are hundreds of gigs, it's going to take a long time, and that could severely dampen what I'm doing on a regular basis. But I think we'll be there. It will be very tight on the budget. I don't know if second jobs are going to absolutely be required. That's what I'm trying to find, because a second job isn't guaranteed. Like, there's not a whole lot. It's a small town. It's much smaller than what we live in now. The population is not a huge thing, but it's just tourists who show up and go skiing, because it's just, there's 2 ski resorts maybe, or at least 1. And that's what people do there. The schools, the public school system does not have school on Friday. Both teachers and students do not work on Friday because they go skiing. Because there's that much snow, and that's just what they do. They ski. I don't know if I'm going to ski. I might try it because I am interested in it, but I typically don't like going fast, and I don't like downhill because I'm afraid of heights. So I'll see. That'll be interesting. It will be a new experience. It's something to try. This year will be an interesting year coming up, hopefully filled with new adventures that I can get excited about, and not the cons. But besides having to get rid of, I've already started downsizing and getting rid of, I threw out 3 huge bags of trash, of things that have no use or no purpose that I like to keep anyway, because I do hoard some stuff. Mostly it's like the boxes to products that I buy. And I've kept some of them that I'm like, no, these are important, and I do want to keep these, or these are big ticket items where it's like all of my camera stuff and wildlife related. I keep all the boxes for that stuff, because there is a chance, it's not a good chance, and I hope it never happens, but there is a chance if I wind up in more financial trouble or anything, I sell all of the equipment that I have. I just stop being able to do that stuff, but I will get more for it if I can if I can put it back in its original box. That is just a fact. People would pay more for something of that regard. It might not be a whole lot more or anything, but I also like to keep it. I like to display those things. So it was a matter of going through and going, all right, well, this was a small thing and I didn't need this and it's okay. And of course I just got rid of I would keep every box for anything, because I also like the boxes. I like the packaging. I like the artwork if they have cool stuff. A cool box to me is worth keeping because I like to see it. But I did throw out the boxes for the modem and router that we bought. And then we just started experiencing internet troubles yesterday, which as soon as I thought, oh, what model is this? And I started turning over the actual modem, I was like, well, you know where the instruction manual would have been, stupid. So thankfully, even though that frustrated me to the point where I went, I guess I'm done trying on the internet. I can't watch a video. I can't play a video game. Like, I wasn't able to do anything. I was having trouble. And meanwhile, I've got significant other sitting behind me watching videos. Apparently they were not the best quality. There was problems with it dropping in and out, but still able to do it. And I'm over here going, all right, well, I'm going to eat lunch. Let me watch some Bob's Burgers. And I load up Hulu and I can't get a signal. I go, well, let me try something else. And I try every single video streaming and I can't even connect to any of them. Meanwhile, watching videos. And it's like, what? How is it? I'm wired in through an Ethernet and you're on the wireless and I'm having trouble. That's usually not how it goes. Thankfully, after a couple hours, I just went and played Pokemon and just gave up and went and lied down and just kind of relaxed because I was getting agitated. Then we contacted the internet provider and said, can you just resend the signal or do anything? Because I've tried rebooting it. I've hard wiped. I've factory reset. I know enough technology to know how to try to fix it on my own. And I think that they were like, yeah, just unplug it. Let's, have you tried turning it off and back on again? Yes, I'm aware, but that does work. And I know how that does fix it, but I've already done that. And I think they resent the signal when they were having us reboot that, but it was fine. Went the rest of the day. Everything was great. Playing games, watching TV. Been watching The Expanse. Great TV show. I haven't seen the newest season, so I was rewatching all of it to get up to the newest and last season. We are almost out of time on this recording because this has a 30-minute time limit, so keep that thought, pause, and continue. I didn't have to do that. I could have just cut it between the two. Anyway, so that's what's happening as far as the move. There may be more cons than pros, but I don't know. I don't feel like I named all of them, but I don't have anything else coming up to mind. I started talking about whether or not we'd have second jobs. There is a grocery store. I have a lot of experience working in grocery stores. I could get a job like that. I do not want to do that. It will only be a few days a week, and those are the few days that I have to do fun things and things that I enjoy like this. And if I have to devote that time to doing something else, which is why my goal was, can we try, please, to find an apartment that we can afford on our salaries currently? And we can. It's just losing a lot of other stuff, like all of the gaming that I just mentioned, and the video streaming platforms and the things like that. All of that will probably go down and be reduced to next to nothing. We might just have one, which is fine, as long as we can agree on the one for the time being, and then when we need to switch something, it would be nice if the world wasn't quite so the way it is. The pros and cons of the living in this place where the cost of living just keeps increasing, because inflation, and no one wants to lose out the people on the top who have gotten used to getting a certain percentage over top of what they're, in profit because of capitalism, screws us all the way down here on the bottom where we're struggling to get by. I basically, for the last few years, not just for the main reason my diet switched to a lot of beans and rice was to try to save money to pay off the debt as quickly as I could. Now it will be a necessity, because there's just not enough money in the budget to have, more expensive foods. So a lot of vegetables I already was doing because health reasons, but it'll have to be taken a look at to see how things are. Sorry, I'm watching a magpie doing not quite circles, but oh, there he goes. Anyway, we'll see what happens. It will be interesting, the move. It will be an adventure. That's what I keep trying to stay focused and positive on. I now know how much it is going to cost. We were able to nail down a place. A big pro is that we can bring the cat. That was always going to be, because if it came down push to shove where it was like we could not find a place to take a cat, just stay where I am and you get to go and I stay here and I'll keep the cat. And then, in a year, we've tried to find somewhere else to move anyway. So it's done at this point. I don't think, because there's just not enough schools in the area. There's not enough opportunity. Like there might have been back in Georgia, but neither of us wanted to stay in Georgia. But there's definitely here in Wyoming where we live, and the area surrounding it and the school systems there, I don't foresee us ever coming back here. It's just not going to work, because no matter where we go, and that's what, we're kind of thinking about buying a house and putting money towards that and having a plan, and all right, but here in 3 years, I'll be debt free and you'll be debt free, and we'll be able to have all this money put towards, excuse me. We'll be able to put towards buying a house and settling down into there. Didn't happen. Not going to happen here. Well, we could afford a house here. We can only do that if she has a job. I cannot support both of us. I do not make enough money. Not without significant help. That's just, we're not going to be able to buy a house if she doesn't have a job here. So wherever we wind up going, the future now is less sure as what we thought it was going to be, but at least we know before anything else happened. Apparently you can get tenure as a high school director, band director, music, whatever. That is a thing. I thought it was only for college, but you can, as a teacher, get that to the point where you can only be fired for significant reasons, like if you have broken serious rules or something like that. But that takes several years working at the same school before you get that. So buying a house has been pushed to a 5 to 10 year plan, as opposed to we were seriously talking about within 2 years owning a house. 2 to 3 years, we would have the money for a down payment for houses here in Wyoming in the area and everything we were looking at, and we were very seriously going to do that. And then the world got flipped upside down. So that has been put off. We will go spend at least a year in Colorado. I can't see us doing more than a year under our current budgets and salaries, and when we start repaying, we'll just have to live somewhere that is a cheaper place to live. We just won't be able to afford it otherwise. Where? I don't know. It might be back in Wyoming, but I just can't foresee it being back where we currently live. But a pro of that getting to see more, getting to go more places. I was not ready to, I mean, even if we settled down here, I've been talking about for months, years, wanting to buy like a van or a motorhome or something small, a small RV, something that I could just go, all right, well, I'm traveling and I'm going to go do, if you want to come, let's go. And we take off and go see the world and go see the wildlife, to being able to do this and traveling and whatnot. Take a vacation and be able to do that. That's what I would like to do. I can do that from anywhere. So that's still an option on the table. One day, maybe, financially will be more difficult because those are expensive purchases, but everything's an expensive purchase, realistically. And that, I don't know how much to get into here, not because it's too personal, but just because this video has been going on long enough. I'm at capacity pretty well on my storage. I'm at storage capacity for everything I'm doing, and I just shot, I don't know, a couple hundred gigs, maybe not that much, more than 100, because I got a 500 gigabyte SSD on this camera, and it showed 127 minutes when I started, and I was at 80 remaining when I finished, so I shot 45 minutes, probably more than 100 gigs that I now have to go home and back up. And I'm just about at capacity fully, and I've already culled through everything. So now, like, I've culled through all of my bad shots. I've talked about this before, of the process when I get back home and what I do digitally to store the stuff. I try to have it backed up in 2 locations: hard drive on the computer, and then in my backup server, which is basically both of those are full now. And I don't save footage where it's like, there's no bird in this frame. I have no purpose for this shot because it's, the bird had already moved, or I missed it, or everything's out of focus, or, 1,000 different reasons why. Those are the easy ones that I just delete before I even back them up. The ones that I want to keep are the ones where there's wildlife in it. That's what I'm doing. I want to keep that stuff. I don't keep any of the footage that I shoot on these cameras, this and from my phone, all the vlogging footage or any of the handheld from like the camcorder or anything there. I use it. I make a vlog out of it. I make the videos, whatever it is. I produce those. I keep the final produced edit, but the raw footage is gone. I just cannot save that. So I'll never be able to go back and edit. And that's why I put as much time, and it's a bit too much pressure, honestly, into making the videos as it is, because I know that I get one shot at it. I come out, I record everything. I do all of this that I'm doing. I take it back. I save it. Or I don't save it, that's the thing. I use it, I edit it into a final video, and I save that final video. I upload, and then I keep a copy for myself, and I try to back that up in 2 places as well. Because, again, the rule of digital storage is 3, and I don't hit that rule as it is, but it's 3, 2 on different machines, and then a 3rd in another location entirely. But I really can't afford to pay for that kind of storage. Storage is expensive. It really is. Every part of it is expensive. So as much as I would love to buy, I've already got, between everything, I got like 30 terabytes of footage saved, or just data. That's a lot, 30 terabytes. And I need double that just to keep going. I did that in a year and a half, maybe. That's the first car I've seen all day. Oh, they work for the energy company. Huh. I wonder what they're doing out here. Probably checking the power lines and stuff. Anyway, yeah, in a year and a half, I have, since I've started getting the cameras and capturing 4K footage regularly whenever I go out with the cameras, and it's really what it's going to do. I'm going to start deleting footage that I don't want to. I really like keeping all the bird footage, so I might start with some of the, like, deer footage. Some of the stuff is just like some of the amazing moments that I've seen over the last year and a half that I don't want to get rid of are immortal. Like, those stay. When I saw the mink come up out of the water and then roll all over the ground on the ice to get all the water off of itself, that's an amazing moment. I never would have seen that if I didn't go out on that day, if I hadn't been in that location looking at that. It's not something that you would see. It's not something that anybody sees very often. Maybe some people would never see that. I want to keep that raw footage because I can always learn to get better in my editing. I know I'm not great at color grading. I know I'm not great at editing. I always want to save that raw footage to be able to use and tweak and go, oh, I learned this new technique. I want to be able to use that on that stuff. So those are the ones that now I have to start narrowing it down, not just to wildlife in general when I get a good clear image or whatever it is that I'm trying to do of the shots that I want to keep. I'm going to have to start paring it down to just the best ones of those that I want to keep for future use. And that's not really what I wanted to do when I started out with this, but I already, like I said, I've got over 30 terabytes saved already, and I really need to get more. I started pricing out, trying to think of, this came about because I've already been thinking about it. It's been on my mind a lot, and I've been pushing it off because I've gone into hard not spending mode, and every dollar I make, especially with my contract work, which, by the way, I got more contract work. I got that box this week. That's what came in alongside my computer parts from the sibling, was from work. So I got that to start doing on the weekends, which is going to take up a large majority of my time, but I need to get it done. I'm not moving with that stuff, so that has to be cleared out and mailed back to them before July, 100%, because I'm not about to include that in the move. I don't even know where I'll set up a photo studio. That stuff that I've got down in the basement where I've got all my lights and my table and everything in the new place, it'll probably be, well, guess what? I'm moving the bed up against the wall and I'm sleeping on the couch, or, whatever the situation is there, and then set up the photo studio for a weekend, get everything shot, and then I can break it all back down. And I'll have to do that every single time. Because there just isn't enough space. It's a 2-bedroom apartment. It's maybe 800 square feet. And right now we live in a 2-bedroom townhouse that's 1,500 square feet. I got a huge basement. Huge being relative to other apartments that I've lived in. But anyway, the storage space has been coming up hard not spending or anything, but I know that that's a thing that I really need to upgrade. And I'm kind of I've just been band-aiding it by getting another hard drive, buying another hard drive, putting it somewhere. Like the server that I have, it is a backup server, but it's just a 2-bay. It only holds 2 hard drives. I need more than that. I need significantly more than that. So I've been looking into and considering what is the cheaper option. Do I buy like a bigger computer tower? Excuse me. Do I get a bigger computer tower that can hold more hard drives and use that as a server? Do I get an actual server like what you would see if you've ever seen a server rack? It's a big metal thing, and then there's rows and rows and rows, and each row is a whole computer that goes back. I could get that, but then I have to buy, is that cheaper? I started looking at used and refurbished ones, and then if I can get one, and as long as it's working, I can just fill it up with all the drives that I need. I don't know what the cheapest possible option is, but probably all of that is like $1,500, no matter which way I slice it, because each one I need to buy at least 2 hard drives. 16 terabyte hard drives are $300 a piece, I think, what I was looking at, because I started pricing it yesterday to try to see. I've definitely held off because the computer market just went insane with chip shortages because of supply chain interruptions with the pandemic that is still ongoing. But the prices are starting to level back out a bit, depending on which way you look at it. Graphics cards are kind of coming back down a bit, which that would be another $1,500 I would love to spend. I would love to get a brand new graphics card of the 3090 series that would really clear up, because I still have trouble when I'm editing, especially 6K footage. It's very stuttery and jittery, and it makes it a much longer process because my computer just cannot keep up with it. But I don't have that kind of money. I'm full debt repayment, trying to get back to a place where it's, manageable. But I also know I'll always be in debt. That's a reality. I do not make at not even $50,000 a year as my annual salary. I don't make enough to support this hobby fully into what it needs to be of making it a career. It's not going to happen. And just living and just wanting to, I spent money that I didn't really have, putting it into debt because I shaved my head, and then I went, well, I need a hat. And I want more than one, and I need some options. So I bought a hat, and then I bought some beanies that were more lightweight, because this is a big, thick thing, and it's going to be warmer. It's not always going to be cold, so I need the option to do something like that, but I have to be able to cover my head so I don't get sunburned and skin cancer and all of that. Like, that's not really money I have. That was kind of an unnecessary purchase, but it's also a totally necessary purchase, and I shouldn't have to decide between not putting it on debt. The only thing that can be pared down is if I just eat less and I don't spend money on groceries. That's not ideal. I've cut out almost all of the other things that are non-essential. I have very few things that aren't, I pay for one streaming service. That's it, as it is right now. Collectively, we have more, and we share with other people, which they're cracking down on, so we may, who knows what's going to happen with that, but that's how I have access to different streaming services. I only pay for one. if I can take care of that one, then it's like, yes, I could pare that down. That's the whole like, oh, if you don't have your streaming services and your avocado toast, that's how you buy a house. No, that's really not how it works. I'm sorry, but if you don't have the money to start with, that's where your problem lies. It's not the additional things. The world is different from that. Typically, I've seen that as an older viewpoint from someone who, a house was a lot cheaper back then and you made more money comparatively to what it is now. So it is a different situation, but not to get into it too fully with anything like that. That's just the world that we live in, and it sucks. We may never wind up owning a house. We may wind up renting forever. It's not really ideal. It's not what I would like to do, but putting myself into debt to buy all of this camera stuff doesn't really help that problem either. I recognize that, but that's what I want to be doing. That to me is the trade-off between a few years ago before I had any of it and I had no purpose or drive and I was miserable. It's not like I saved all the money then either. I would find ways to spend it on fruitless things anyway. So at least this way I have something to direct it to. Anyway, I have not yet decided what I'm going to do. I don't really want to start deleting footage that I really like, but I do really need to find a way to expand that. And although I'm in a much better position now, even though I just had to shell out over $1,000 for a security deposit for this new place, we should get that back. My savings account is growing. I do actively contribute to that, which is nice. So I don't want to take from that. There are multiple things that I would love to buy at this point if I had the money. Not trying to put myself further into debt. I know that will be the thing, but I was hoping to dig myself out of the hole a bit more before I went, okay, now I'll put myself back in it. Because I know that that's just the only way that I'm going to be able to buy things like a server, a backup server with hundreds of terabytes, which is what I will need. I would love to upgrade all of my vlogging equipment entirely because there's more things that I want to be doing and I want a better camera to do those things. That's not entirely necessary, but it's something I would like. I'd love to get a new camera for the work that I'm doing, for my contract work, and to go take wildlife photos and landscape photos and all kinds of photos. The camera that I take out when I'm using is like 14 years old. I would love to get a new camera, but that is literally how much I paid for my video camera. So it's expensive. I don't have the money for all that. I think about all the other things. I'd love to buy, I was researching a different lens. I'd love to buy a bigger, badder lens to get even closer to stuff. There's one, I don't even think they make it anymore. I'd have to buy it from, used secondhand, which is fine. I don't have a problem with that. It's just still, it's like $8,000 used, but it's $300 to $800. And like, that's a big boy. That would be really useful. I mean, even on top of that, if you want to go as far as the biggest boy, the 50 to 1000, the cinema lens that they use to film, high-end wildlife productions, that's like 70 grand. That is a house in Wyoming, and a decently sized one, honestly. Whereas that would be a down payment for one in Colorado. The houses there are more than $500,000. At least in all the areas we were looking, certain radius, which is, can't go too far away from that. That really hurt us narrowing down our options on the con, because it's not a big city, so it's not a huge amount of stuff, and there is very limited things, because you can't go too far away. You will not be able to travel in the winter. You are on top of a mountain, and when it snows, which it snows a lot, you can't get down the mountain. It's not going to happen. It's very dangerous. You drive on the snow. That will be something to get used to. So, at the very least, I will try to save up, because I know 100% necessary for me, I'm going to need to buy snowshoes. Those clip-on things like we talked about recently, the last few months. So, you might understand a little bit as to why I took last weekend off. We've secured the place, but it has been a mountain of stress that I have been dealing with for the past few months of trying to figure out what was going on, where I'd be living. The entire situation was thrown up to I don't know entirely, and having to try to narrow it down. And during that, it's really hard to get the energy to go, all right, well, I'm going to pack up all my stuff and go out and look for wildlife. I just wouldn't enjoy it as much because I got 1,000 things running through my head. At least this way I can start checking off a little bit. We have a place to live that is affordable, even if I am not happy about it. It can be done. It will be difficult. Moving again in a year is not what I want to do. I have moved so many times since I turned 18, and I really don't want to do it. But this will be an easier one, which means the move out should be fairly easy as well, depending on where we wind up going, just because we won't have that much. That is a nice thing, because I wound up moving us out here, loading the truck by myself. I did have movers for the unload, because I was tired after 3 days of... I hired movers for both, but I canceled them on the load in, because I was like, well, I got the truck, let me give it a shot. It was like 45 minutes to an hour, and I'd packed up all the big stuff in like a majority of the truck, and I went, oh... And I still have a full day to do this. This is the day before we actually leave. Yeah, cancel the movers. I got this. So I took care of it myself. I moved everything in, but then drove 1,500 miles, staying in hotels during a pandemic. Just easier to have somebody else, a couple of young kids move us in, which was nice. And it worked out quite well. Now this move, and probably the next move, I'll do myself. It'll just be a lot of boxes for a lot of stuff. And that's something I thought about, the amount of stuff that I own. I don't need all of it. It's nice to own those things. I have collections of various things. And I was thinking, I don't think I'll have them for the rest of my life. There will come a point where I just decide, similar to what I talked about throwing out boxes, where I go, I don't need these. It'll come a point where I go, you know what I don't need is 200 Funko Pops. I liked them. I liked collecting them. I like the hunt. I like going for that stuff. It was expensive. I spent a good bit of money on that, but I enjoyed what I was doing in that regard. I have all of those boxed up. I would love to display them one day, but there might come a point where I go, I have to get rid of this. I just physically cannot contain this much space. I don't have it. I don't have the space for it. I don't have the space to display it, or for whatever reason, I have to get rid of it. It'd be cool to at least record that, so I have that, because coming back to the main point of all of this, realistically, the main point is that I know I will hit a point one day in life, hopefully 30 or 40 years from now, where I'm not going to be able to do these things. And I want to record all of it so I have it to look back on. If anyone else finds it interesting and follows along for the journey, that's great. But why I really started writing down my life, right, the blogs that started this turning into the videos, was because I wanted something to look back on. I wanted the record of these things. Memory fades. This stuff should hopefully last. So, pros and cons. That's where we're at. We're at the end of May. I didn't make it out to Yellowstone yet. I might try that in June. I'm trying, but I also now have the monumental task of packing up an entire apartment. For the most part by myself. She'll take care of her stuff, but I own the majority of the stuff anyway, so it's only fair to get that stuff done and as much help as I can have. But she then leaves for almost a month for school, so that'll be what it'll be. It was nice. It was nice to get out and see the birds today. I'm glad I did that. And I got to see some new ones. Still making progress towards that goal. I will be back to Wyoming. I know, because there are several things that I want to show people that we were not able to because of a pandemic, and we're not having anyone get on a flight for us and come out here or anything. But there are things that I want to show to people in person. I think I'm going to record before I leave, maybe June, maybe July. I don't know. We'll see. I kind of want to just do like a driving around where we lived and show this area, because I don't expect to be back. And I talked about it in the other video. For safety, I specifically do not. I make a point to not announce exactly where I am, where I live, where the things are. People have figured it out. The people who lived here and know this area are pretty easy to tell, depending on where I go. I still show the location, especially when it's a nature landscape, and if they know the area, they're going to be able to pinpoint it. Because Wyoming's not very populated, so it's pretty easy to tell. But now that I won't be living here anymore, I don't mind recording that. At the very least, with the time frame of this, even if I did it today, which I'm not going to do, or this weekend, by the time I get it edited in a week or two and it goes up in June on Patreon, it's like 2 months before it ever hits YouTube to the general public. At least the people on Patreon I trust a lot more. People who are giving me money, supporting this dream, are a lot less likely to try to track me down, find my location, steal my equipment, or anything like that, I would assume. So I don't mind that so much if it goes up at some point during there and I get to look around and go, here was the town, here's where we lived, here are the experiences, because I do want to capture that. I do want to have that as a record. So when I leave a place, I didn't do it for Georgia, but I also wasn't making videos at that point. I did not have all the video equipment that I have. So I didn't do anything like that. I could have very, very well done that and gone, here's where I lived, and these are all the experiences. Here's where I went into this. Here's where I went into that. I could do that here a bit more before I leave, and it won't make it to the general public until after I'm already gone, so it won't matter. And the same thing, while I'm in Colorado, I'm not going to talk about where I live, the exact location or anything. The people who are there, I mean, besides what I've already said about it, the people who are there might be able to recognize it, but with luck, won't be a problem. And I very rarely record around where I live anyway. So I think this has gone on long enough. We're almost at the 30-minute recording mark again. So that's almost an hour of personal vlog-related things. It was kind of pent up. I did, like I said, take a weekend off, but obviously there's been a lot building and there's been a lot of stress, and it's really been weighing on me. And there's been a lot to try and process through all of this and to figure out exactly what's going on, because it is difficult to just go with the flow unless there is a baseline of understanding and plans. And even if the path now ahead of me doesn't go directly in the same direction that I want it to, it will still be a fun side adventure, hopefully, and not a negative experience, a con. Hopefully it will be a pro in the long run, and then we'll still wind up at the same destination eventually. That's my goal. Anyway, I think I've talked long enough. I need to drink some water, eat a protein bar. I still have the camera out, so I am going to do a bit of driving like I talked about and see if I see anything else, but for the most part I will probably just head back home. I now have the weight of several dozen items. I got like 40 something that I need to photograph and start editing. I should be able to edit it on the work computer though, instead of having to use my editing computer for all the other stuff, so I can leave that thing to I can set that whole thing up and be like processing a video, editing all of my footage. I can get all that done and go, all right, you render, and now I'll just scoot over here and use my work computer for work-related things, because I put a better graphics card in it. It's a 10-year-old graphics card that is still better than the 15-year-old one that was in it before. Anyway. Alrighty, well, I think that's going to be it for today then. Kind of covers all the main points that I wanted to hit, and we'll see what happens in the future. No, I don't have any hair. At the end of the day, pulled over, packed up all the camera stuff before I head home, and I just really wanted to leave one positive note, just to make sure of what I really want to take away from this, is just to look back over the last year and a half on all the experiences that I've had, everything that I've done since moving here, and keep that in mind for where I go in the future, because they've all been overall positive. And all the new stuff that I got to experience and the new exciting things. And I'm sure that I'll have at least that many more in the future, if not more.